Hey, welcome back, guys. Here we go, continuing on with Chapter 18. So, still dealing with the emerging adulthood population, but now we're moving on to the cognitive development. So, here we go. There you go. You can see it now. All right, so cognitive development in the emerging childhood population. So, the different approaches are the stage approach, the psychometric approach, and the information processing. So stage shifts in nature of thought, psychometric, and analyzes intelligence longitudinally, meaning long term, over long time. And then information, how the brain encodes, stores, and retrieves information. One of the things you guys have learned, especially while you're in college, is time management. It is a struggle for everybody. We wake up, we realize there's 10 things we have to do today, and the first thing we think of is, I'll do it in a minute. And what happens is when we wake up and we realize we have a whole day to do something, and then by the time so we spend all day long going, oh, I've got the rest of the day, I've got the rest of the day, I've got the rest of the day. And then by the end of the day, we're like, well, crap, I didn't do anything. That's why holidays sneak up on us, whether it's Christmas, birthdays, whatever, doesn't matter. Because when we think we've got all the time in the world, so here it is, it's March, almost April. We're thinking, oh, Christmas is, 8 months away. We have plenty of time. But what happens is, in the meantime, we get busy and time flies. And then all of a sudden we realize, well, crap, I'm out of time, right? So as we mature, hopefully our ability to manage our time gets better, because as part-time college students, those of you that are part-time college students tend to have time management issues. Hopefully, you guys, those of you that are full-time and those of you that are full-time with full-time jobs, you guys tend to manage your time better because you know that every minute of your day is spoken for. You're either at work, you're at school, or you're studying. So you know that you have to squeeze in your study time between your work and your school schedule, right? So what happens is we have to understand that even though, long term, the gratification for completing something that we have planned out, believe it or not, is just as good as what we get from immediate gratification. But the thing is, with the immediate gratification, we get gratified now. We're rewarded now. So we don't realize that even by delaying something, even though we don't get that gratification now, it is going to be gratifying once we get to the end and we realize, wow, I got to enjoy the process, or I didn't have to stress through the process, and it's all done, right? So once we get past that, once we understand time management, then that's going to allow for better planning in the future, and that's going to help us to make sure we get in the have tos versus the want tos versus the wish I could, right? Sorry. Students flock to a study center for a biannual all-night study session before final exams, making cramming a social experience. Now, FSHA, we really don't have that so much, because basically the type of student that we cater to, one, we don't have the on-campus housing like the bigger institutions do. So we don't really have that. But in the bigger institutions where everybody's on campus, it is a social experience. And so we tend to do what we need to do to be a part of that social experience. Now, is there a way you can be both prepared and experience everything socially? Absolutely. But more times than not, we fall into with with our peers and go, okay, well, we can deal with it later. We'll just cram all night. We'll get it done. But what happens is this isn't the best way to learn. The best way to learn is over time and consistency and methodically, right? Using the different, those of you guys that have been in or are in Gen Psych, one of the things that we talk about are different ways you can learn. And so understanding how you learn as an individual will help you to make sure that you have a better success rate going forward, because you're going to do what you need to do to learn, and how you learn best. I'm not an auditory learner. I mean, people can talk at me all day long and I probably won't pick up 10%, right? But if I'm reading it, I do better. But if it's like a how-to something, then I find that both reading and listening is where I pick up most of the information. That's the kinesthetic learner, which is involving more than one sense. Stereotypes. Stereotypes exist because we tend to generalize. Most instructors. Okay, so if you think about your math instructor, what do you think of your math instructor? What do you think of most math instructors? What do you think of most accounting instructors? What do you think of most psychology instructors? Just because you stereotype, one person does not mean that goes across the entire population of that one population. Even though I'm a white female, but I cannot speak for the entire female population. I, as myself, cannot speak for the entire white population, and I cannot speak for the entire white female population. Now, because you know me, you can say, okay, all white girls or all white people or all girls are, we've all seen the internet memes of Karen, right? Karen is that stereotypical soccer mom, that stereotypical soccer mom that everybody loves to hate, right? But more often than not, it's a negative stereotype. And what happens is with that negative stereotype, when we come into contact with people that, fit the box of that stereotype, we tend to get anxious and we tend to, distort, the emotional processes because we've already put, okay, great. Now I'm walking into this white chick's classroom. This is going to be horrible because, oh my God, she's got kids. Okay, Karen. Right? So, before we even begin the experience, just because I know who you are, what you look like, I've already categorized you. All right. One of the theorists that does a lot with the stages of development is Piaget. He's great in that he studied really well the child part of it, but he did not allow for the continuation of that formal thinking process. So, he, great theorist, great educator, but just like everybody else, even though we've gotten some great successes from him, we've gotten some great information from him, and he's by far one of the more well-known forefathers of psychology. But understand, just like anybody else, he has some, very, he has limitations as well. Now, from here, we go into the subjective versus objective thought. So adolescents tend to use either objective or subjective reasoning, but as adults, believe it or not, we can do both. Subjective thinking, your experiences, your goals, your culture, okay? So based on personal qualities of an individual thinker. So subjective thought, the individual thinker. So you see, you've heard me say, normalcy is the word normal is subjective, meaning it basically, subjective thought, depends on who you are and what your experiences are. Versus objective thoughts, which are facts, which is why I do my exams the way I do, why I do my homework the way I do. Because what I found was that when I was grading papers, of short answer or short or essay questions or whatever, I found myself going, okay, well, one, what was my mood? If I was in a better mood, then I was more apt to grade the students more lenient. If I was in a foul mood, I was more apt to grade the students more strictly. And then there were some students that just personality conflict, one type of personality conflict, and I found myself grading them a little more strict than others. And after, spending a couple weeks looking at this, I realized, wait a minute, this is not fair to anybody. One, they're not learning correctly. Two, it's not fair for me to judge based on what I see in the classroom. And three, it's just not an overall thing. I cannot base a grade on my opinion, because my opinion is not what their grade is about. Your grade is not whether or not I think you're smart. Your grade is not based on what I think you are as a person, or how I think you are as a person, or whether you're a male or a female, whether you've got tattoos or no tattoos, whether you've got long hair, short hair, what your race is. Are you a dual enrollment student, or are you a full-time college student? One thing has nothing to do with the other. It's how well do you know the information. And my conclusion to that was objective thought, objective reasoning, objective tests were much more fair as far as the grading process goes, regardless, of what I thought of the individual student, which is where it needs to be. Cognitive flexibility, okay, basically being able to take our cognitive experiences and adjust them as they need to. How do we deal with things that are unforeseen? How do we deal with things that might happen? It helps us with dealing with our emotions, intellectual problems, listening to others and considering other opinions, not just our own, right? So it just kind of helps us be well-rounded people. Gender differences in faith and practices. Generally, women are more apt to attend religious services and identify with religion. Why that is, I don't know. Gilligan says that because women tend to think about moral issues differently. Women are more of the, if you go back to caveman days, women are more of the nurturers, right? Whereas men were the hunters and the gatherers. So whereas the women tended to understand better subjective thought or subjective issues, whereas men were more of an objective type. So, and with any religion, there's a lot of subjectivity to it. Varying degrees. It's not about just what's right and wrong. Having a conversation with my daughter about, well, can't we just all live by the 10 Commandments and be done with it? Yes and no, because when it says thou shalt not, okay, yes, no, but when it says thou shalt not commit murder, it's not talking about just going out and murdering people. It's also talking about, destroying someone's faith, destroying someone's hope, destroying someone's self-esteem. So it's not about just murder, but it's about killing souls or killing hope or killing one aspect of their personality or one aspect, of their psychology, either methodically or, haphazardly, doesn't matter. But things like education, specific dilemmas and culture correlate more strongly than gender as far as faith practices go. However, gender does play a significant role, even though, if you grew up in a very well-rounded, educated environment, then you're probably already not trained's not the right word, but you've already, like we have schedules, we have routines, and you're already in that routine of one thing or another. And so that's where you are. And so if you're raised in that routine environment, that specific environment, that cultural environment, then you're more apt to continue with those faith and, with faith and in general, anything, because you're already set. Women tend to be reluctant to judge right and wrong, whereas men tend to emphasize justice over compassion and judge right and wrong. So women are more of the morality of care, meaning I'm more interested in why you did something, not what you did. Whereas men are like, I don't really care what you did, or I don't care why you did it. The fact is you did it and it was wrong, right? So if you look at what makes us individuals, why we do what we do, why we judge one thing wrong, one thing right, or if two people do the same thing, one makes it okay and one makes it not okay. Is it okay if, the homeless kid steals bread? Okay. Is it okay if the rich man steals bread? The theft is the same, but one is stealing because if they don't, they can't survive. The other is stealing just to see if they can get away with it, right? So there's that diversity in population is what helps us, or sometimes causes us, to form those thought patterns as far as justice and morality. Now, in talking about diversity, in the United States, 20% of beginning college students were first generation in 2014. So basically 20% of you guys that are out there in 2014, so right now, 6 years ago, were the first of their generation. 20% of the Americans that went to college in 2014 were the first in their family to go to college. The college classrooms are becoming more ethnically divergent. It's not just about the white middle-class American male anymore. It's not just about the white middle-class American female. Hell, it's not even about the white people. It's not about the middle-class people. It's not even about necessarily quote-unquote Americans anymore, because we're seeing, not only are we seeing the minority population from other countries, but we're also seeing more ethnically diverse people that are Americans. More women are going to school. Believe it or not, most of my classes have more males than females. Now, out of the 4 classes I have this semester, 3 of my classes are heavy female. And I'm talking 6-to-1, 7-to-1. Females to males. Just for every 1 male, I've got like 7 females, except one class. I do have one class where it's 5-to-1 or 4-to-1. For every 4 males, I have 1 female. It's nice to see. It's nice to see a lot of dual enrollment kids. It's nice to see a lot of us to have, people from other countries. It's amazing because not only do they get the opportunity to learn, whereas they couldn't before, I also get the opportunity to learn from them because it helps to open my eyes that, wait a minute, not everybody learns the same way because, one, we don't even speak the same language. Our primary language is different. And so it teaches me a little more compassion, and it teaches me to be a little more patient with those that are different than me, which to me is it's only good, no matter which way you look at it. Even though the diversity is changing, we still have 97% of the students that are native to the U.S. that are in our schools. And sadly, as we know, discrimination can be based on disabilities as well. However, illegal doesn't matter. We've learned the art of saying something without necessarily saying it. There's the sin by commission, and then there's the sin by omission. It's a whole lot easier to judge the sin by commission or committing a sin than the sin by omission, which is not doing something. Because if I do something, then there's a thought to it. But if I don't do something, oh, well, I didn't realize, right? So it's not necessarily what we say, it's how we say it. It doesn't matter, whether or not we say it or whether we don't say it. The fact that there's any sort of discrimination, whether implicit, explicit, committed or omitted, it doesn't matter. It's still illegal. Even though we still are, now we're seeing more than half of our college students are female. Amazing, right? It took women forever to break through that glass ceiling. Okay. We're also seeing, though, a lot of men are, not a lot, but we're seeing more and more men stay at home. I don't want to be the breadwinner. She can be the breadwinner, and she's okay with that. Okay. And then, of course, we have now the LGBT community or the LGBTQ community. So students are now, being more open and vocal about their orientation and their, and their preferences. So even with the LGBTQ community, there's still that population of people that are finding that they're still heavily discriminated against, but that's something that they're fighting every day. And of course, one of the things I teach my kids, or I taught my kids, I hope, is that I don't look at somebody and go, oh, well, you're Black, I can't talk to you. That's how I was raised. But that's not how I raised my kids. Or I can't talk to you because you're a lesbian. I was raised like that, but I didn't raise my kids like that. I've always told my kids, look, you treat people with respect until they disrespect you. Now, once they disrespect you, that's it. Game's over. If you're not going to be, when I walk into a classroom, I automatically say to myself anyway, look, these kids are here, these students are here because they want to be, and so I owe you guys respect. Now, you disrespect me, then we may have issues, but 9 times out of 10, that doesn't happen. And in fact, the 2.5 years I've been at FSCJ, I've only had one student that I really, really had an issue with. And it was just simply because, she got up in my face in the middle of class and decided she wasn't going to do an assignment, and I wasn't going to make her do the assignment. And, the end of the semester, things didn't work out in her favor because she didn't turn in her work, and it's not my fault, so, but even had she gotten all of her work in, I wouldn't have graded her any differently. But because she didn't turn in her work, it looked bad. And I even had to sit down with my dean. And my dean said, look what happened. And I said, look, this is what happened. So I don't dislike people because of who they are. I dislike people for how they treat me or don't treat me, but it's got no, what you look like has absolutely zero to do with how I treat you. So here we go. So diversity enrollment. So you see, we see the increase in diversity of the student body. And of course, the more we see that, the more what that means is to encourage and discourage cognition. What that means is, because we're seeing more diversity, basically we're more accepting of diversity. And of course, faculty are moving more from lecture format to learning methods that require student interaction and foster learning. So, and what this means is, I know and I'm aware that my traditional way of teaching class doesn't work. You know, you guys aren't paying attention. You guys aren't listening. And so is that your fault? No. What it means is I have to change the way I do things. I have to keep up with the times. I have to keep up with the way kids learn, the way students learn, and what's best for them. Not what's best for me, not what's easiest for me. Now, is it taking some time? Of course it is. You know, however, in the meantime, I'm certainly open to, you know, whatever works, and to suggestions, which is why I opened the semester with, you know, I try to remember to ask, you know, look, is there something you guys like? Is there something you guys don't like? You know, help me help you, because if I don't know, I don't know, right? And then the correlation between college education and later income is stronger now than previously due to the loss of unskilled jobs. So basically, the more education you have, the more apt you are to make more money in the future. People that have unskilled jobs, basically what that means is, you know, you're working, and it's not to say that because you work in a fast food restaurant, you're not skilled. That's not what that means. Well, what it's talking about is those formal skills, that formal education. And then the less likely you are to have, if you don't have that higher education, then you're more likely to not continue on, and you're going to settle for where you are, which is not what I want. I want for you guys. What I want for you guys is for you guys to look and say, look, I can do this. I can do anything. Now, there are some days where it's harder than others. Absolutely. You know, but the difference between a job and a career is a job is part-time, not part-time, but it's short-term. Your career is long-term. Hopefully it's lifelong. Now, that doesn't mean to say that you're not going to change careers in your life. You will. On average, we change careers 4 to 5 times. You know, but that's because we can. And you guys, some of you guys that are, you know, that are a little older, you were a mom first, you were a dad first, you were in the military first. You know, you did what you did for your family, you did what you did for your country, and now it's your turn. And now that you're making an effort and in your education, you know, you're going to see the fruits from that, you know, well into the future. So, well, sweet. So that's that. You guys let me know if you need anything else. That's chapter 18. If you need anything else, let me know. Otherwise, you know, we'll pick up where we left off, chapter 19 later on. If you have any questions, you can email me. You know where I am. Otherwise, you guys stay safe, stay well, and I will talk to y'all later. Take care. Bye.